Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. It's Driena Sixto, the Turning Point Action spokesperson. Driena, we have the first day of the new term for the Supreme Court, so 2025 into 2026. Looking forward to what they have to rule on. I'm always curious about it because the media always seems to want to forecast what the High Court will do, but we know that they have to wait until certain cases come before them, and for many, more often than not, don't want to necessarily get too political. But what do you see maybe before the court that might be a surprise in the upcoming term?
Well, I think with all the lawfare going on, trying to stop President Trump's mandate by the people and from being enforced, especially when it comes to cleaning up this country of the invasion of foreign illegal immigrants that came in, by the thousands, by the millions. I think that a case will be brought up to the Supreme Court to make it harder for lawfare to keep stopping progress of getting a lot of those people out and enforcing the policies. Just recently, we heard news of the Abrego Garcia case, Kilmar Abrego Garcia case, an illegal immigrant with a history of gang affiliations, gang violence, domestic violence. He is on his seventh hearing to get him out of this country. He's already had previous deportation orders, and in the meantime, taxpayers are fronting the bill for his defense, basically. And that's just unsustainable. I think that a case that is very relevant to what's going to happen in these next 4 years with, enforcing the immigration laws on the books being at the forefront of Trump's agenda, is making sure that we remove a lot of the lawfare obstacles being used to prevent us from enforcing our immigration laws, kind of like we've seen in this Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. And hopefully there's a case that goes to the Supreme Court where we address those issues.
Yes, it seems very likely given that now 400 members of the Texas National Guard going to Portland, Oregon, and Chicago, Illinois, as both those municipalities and the state governments have been very quickly attempting to sue the Trump administration over all of this. They do not say it's an insurrection, and they say that the Insurrection Act cannot be used. But President Trump seemingly going in that direction with his administration now. Memphis, Tennessee might be a test run in the sense that Governor Bill Lee participating and working with the administration to federalize the National Guard, and potentially in New Orleans, Louisiana, with Governor Jeff Landry down south. So what do you think this will all turn into in the coming days and weeks here, as we seem to have one party that is all completely for lawlessness and the other one simply just trying to save lives?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're going to, first of all, see the real face of the Democrat Party unmasked as to who they are, who they represent, whose interests they're looking out for. President Trump has mandated that the National Guard in some of these states that have extremely liberal left-wing cities that pretty much resemble dystopias, that their National Guard be used for the purpose of protecting federal buildings, federal agents, particularly and specifically ICE agents that are there to do their job of removing criminal illegal aliens from those cities. And we've seen opposition from the local Democrat leadership, and they have allowed a lot of civil unrest. They have allowed attacks on federal facilities, federal buildings, and federal officers that are just there to do their job. And so it just makes logical sense to use the National Guard to protect those officers from doing their job and those facilities, because indeed it is true that we are at the point where this is an internal rebellion. It's an internal rebellion, and Trump is calling it what it is. And I think that we're going to see, just like how after taking over the DC streets in just 2 weeks, things changed radically, where crime went down radically. We're going to see the effects of Trump's policies and Trump's cleanup act in these left-wing cities. And who knows, maybe for the first time, Democrats living in those cities under those unsafe conditions for such a long time can see the difference of, night and day of what things would look like under Republican leadership and under law and order.
I
Maybe
see
they'll
this
come to our
being,
side.
yeah, yes, absolutely. I see this being very similar to what took place under the Eisenhower and Kennedy administrations, specifically addressing then Dixiecrat Governor George Wallace with the segregation, because the law was on the books to bring these schools together and integrated post Brown versus the Board of Education, ultimately ruled by the courts in that matter. And a public official like George Wallace simply creating things out of thin air. And we've already had, again, that dangerous leftist rhetoric of Governor Newsom just this week on a failed comedy show stating that President Trump is an SOB. You have Governor Pritzker saying that it's Secretary Noam's thugs in a press conference with Mayor Brandon Johnson, who signed no ICE zones. It almost reminds me of our work at Turning Point with the free speech zones on the campuses that are no longer really happening, thanks to great organizations like Turning Point Action and Turning Point USA fighting for that free speech because, oh, that's the thing. It's like facts that are stubborn things, Driena. Free speech is a stubborn thing that exists really throughout this great land of ours.
And that's all we really need to win people over to our side. That's why the left is so hell-bent on censorship. That's why they're so hell-bent on violence when they can't achieve that censorship via other means, right? I think we've recently seen the ugly head of what most, not just a small fringe group of, people on the left believe in, but we've seen the head of what's behind their rhetoric, their policies, and they truly seem to be led by people that hate those with opposing viewpoints. Just the other day, we got a candidate, AG candidate for Virginia, Jay Jones. There were text messages of his released where he was caught saying that he wished that a past Speaker of the House had 2 bullets to the head, and not just that, that the children of this man died in the mother's arms. Imagine that right now, like, and this is currently the nominee, the Democrat nominee for AG in Virginia, who has said this, has not stepped down, has not resigned, has not lost a single endorsement from any Democrat whatsoever. They're still going with him. They're still going to make him his candidate. And so I definitely see that this left-wing violence and the allowance of violence is something that is now a pattern. It's something that's mainstream. And so it relates back to Democrat leadership giving stand-down orders to their local officers when it comes to protecting federal buildings, when it comes to protecting federal agents when they come into town to do their job and remove illegal aliens that are not supposed to be here in this country. So, via other means, we have to make sure that those people are protected because we know Democrats aren't going to do that.
And the voters much smarter than I think Democrats give them credit for. People are paying attention to what's happening. And just as we saw in the Tar Heel state of North Carolina, the Republican gubernatorial candidate had some trouble last year, and it affected races up and down the ballot other than President Trump and his illustrious campaign, the way that they worked so hard in Trump Force 47. I see within the next month, 4 weeks is it can be long, but a short period of time given the early voting that we now have in this country. And I think with Jay Jones saying what he said can really have a poor effect upon the entire Democrat ticket, to your point, Driena. Now, we also do have a lockdown going on with Chuck Schumer. He continues all of this. And I think he's really putting his future political career on the line as a result. He's worried about the AOC wing that is attempting to primary him. At the same time, he's willing to allow the American government to be held hostage. I think this is just another reason why we need term limits.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's some people that have taken advantage of their position in government for so long. And here's the problem with that. And this goes for just pretty much every member of Congress. They create laws in which they don't have to live under, live by, or experience the consequences from. So that's what enables them to do all this. This is why Chuck Schumer and the Democrats can really just hold the American people hostage and, have this government shutdown because they are voting or choosing not to pass a budget simply for there not being a part in that budget that uses our taxpayer dollars, not theirs, but ours as a whole, as a conglomerate, our taxpayer dollars to fund illegal aliens, non-residents, non-citizens, to fund their healthcare for free. That's what they're going to bat for. That's what they're going to war for. That doesn't affect them in any way, shape, or form personally, but it's crazy that they can hold us hostage and change our lives and make it for some people especially miserable just so that they can get their way and just so that they can use this as political leverage. I think their end goal here is that they believe that maybe by appeasing a lot of this illegal base or non-citizen base, that when Trump is no longer in power, they hope that they can put in a Democrat president in there, Democrat leadership, and that they legalize the millions and millions of people that they allowed to invade this country during the Biden administration. I think that that's their glimmer of hope. And so they're trying to appease them. They're trying to play nice with them so that when that happens, they vote Democrat. Obviously, we're going to fight tooth and nail for that not being the case. Um, it's literally a matter of life and death of the country if we do not win. But I feel like this is showing to who their true alliance lies. And it shows that they are not particularly negatively affected by this lockdown. So they can hold their breath for as long as they want to because somebody else is actually holding, their breath for them theoretically, metaphorically. For example, federal agents like military people, that work in TSA, they are right now being called to work without receiving a paycheck because they're deemed essential workers. So they are missing payments on mortgages, on cars, on everything, on their credit cards. And they are receiving the blowback from this petty Democrat shutdown. Those are the people truly suffering. The mothers and children on WIC, on food stamps, the most vulnerable of us all that are quite literally going to starve while Democrats just take, I guess, an extended little vacation on the taxpayer dollars. So absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, it is. And $1.2 billion, that's what it's cost thus far, over 5 days into this now. So we'll see where they stand in the coming hours, is how Speaker Mike Johnson giving all of those updates. And these same leaders, I find funny, Driena, they want to unmask ICE. They also want ICE to present an identification when arresting these criminal thugs and these potential foreign terrorist organizations in Trinidad, Aragua, and the border cartels and MS-13, many who have been rounded up under the leadership of this administration. Well, where did we hear that before? Oh, yes, they wanted to mask up private citizens during COVID. They wanted 6 feet apart, although that wasn't scientific. And the irony of their municipalities and their states that do not have any form of voter ID. So the height of hypocrisy being exposed right now. I think it's the light going across the darkness and evil coming to the surface.
Absolutely, absolutely. They keep shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to their public image. And I think voters will recognize that, see that, and hopefully get out to vote during these upcoming midterm elections and also any local special elections that happen before that.
Yes, and all coming up very fast here in New York City, New Jersey, and Virginia. It's also the October 7th anniversary this week. We reflect upon what happened 2 years ago in Israel, ongoing peace discussions happening in Egypt as we speak, with the Middle East envoy focused on just that, bringing peace to the Middle East. It seems as if most countries really uniting around President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in these efforts. And sadly, there are parades happening around the country and demonstrations, seemingly by paid agitators, to promote this narrative of the unholy triumvirate of communism, Islamism, and globalism. These rules for radicals, I think Saul Alinsky really is inspiring them from the grave.
Yeah, I think what the world wants more than anything is indeed that peace in the Middle East. I mean, since I was in middle school, it's something that it was a known phrase for me back then. There always seems to be ongoing trouble and deaths and tragedy from all sides, and I think that what Donald Trump has said from the beginning is that he wants to be a president where no new wars are started and that keeps a great relationship with all sides. And I think he's shown already that he is truly trying to be the broker of peace. Back when this incident happened years back, a lot of people stood in solidarity with the victims of this tragedy. I know down here in Miami, Young Republicans, we attended a local memorial in memory of those victims, and I think it's everybody's desire right now that the perpetrators of that attack that day truly come to justice. And that's all we want, right? That the perpetrators behind October 7th come to justice for the sake of the family of the victims of that day.
No question about that. Driena Sixto, the Turning
Mhm.
Point Action spokesperson, thank you for joining us, as always, on the right side of history.
Thank you.